All right, so now we're going to start to make our hotel website responsive because there's some things that we need to change on smaller screens. So if we take a look, the menu looks okay right now, but if we add more links, it's going to start to look funky. Down here, I don't like this, how this is, these are too skinny to be side by side. Also, the text runs off. These should be stacked as well. So we basically want to stack everything that's being floated on larger screens. On the About page, we want to stack these. We probably want to change the line height for the heading. Down here, these are coming out of its container because the height is fixed here. And then contact, the form looks good, but these should be stacked. So we have a few things that we need to change or just change on smaller screens. Now we could put media queries right in our style.css, but this style sheet is already pretty big. So what I'm going to do is create a whole new style sheet in the CSS folder called mobile.css. And we're just going to go to our index, and right below the style CSS link, I'm just going to copy that down. We'll change this to mobile, and then we just want to add a media attribute, and we're going to set this to screen and then a set of parentheses, and we'll say max width. Let's do 768 pixels. So basically tablets and less. Tablets, smartphones, any small device. And then that style sheet should kick in. So to test it out in mobile CSS, I'm just going to do a body and do display none, which will make the whole body disappear on small screens. So if I save that, you'll see there's nothing showing until I hit that 768 breakpoint. Okay, so we know that that is actually in effect. So we'll get rid of that. I just wanted to test it out. Now, in our index file, we're going to start with the menu, which looks fine now, but if I take this last list item, the contact link here, and I go down 3 more times and save, you'll see that now it looks messed up. So what I want is everything to be centered, the logo centered, and then all the links to be in a vertical fashion. So what I'll do is I'm going to keep our style CSS open and take our mobile CSS and move it over to this half, okay, over to the right side. That way we can see both at the same time and see what we need to change. I'm also going to close up the sidebar here. Now for the nav bar, let's see, let's go down to our nav bar, and we're floating the H1, the logo, to the left. We're floating the UL to the right. We want to basically set those to float none. So let's say nav bar H1, and you know we should be actually targeting the logo class. See how the H1 has a class of logo? So let's actually do navbar.logo. We'll do that here and over here. .logo. All right, and then we're going to set this to float none. Okay, just doing that's not going to change anything, but we want it in the middle, so we're going to say text align center. And if I save that, now that's put in the center. Now for these, I want to first get rid of the float on the UL. You can see it's floated to the right. I also want to get rid of the float on the LIs. Okay, so we want to remove both of those. Now I could combine both float. What am I doing? So we'll say navbar UL, and let's also do navbar LI. And we want to set both of them to float none and save. Actually, you know what? This is not overwriting this because over here we specified the UL, so we'll just have to do that here as well in order for it to overwrite it. All right. Now, this comes down quite a bit, and later on you're probably going to learn JavaScript where you can create some kind of button, and you can click it and then have this menu just kind of transition down. We may even get into some of that later on, but right now we're just dealing with straight HTML, CSS, no animation, anything like that. So I think one thing we could do is get rid of some of the padding, not make these so wide, so fat, so it doesn't come down as much. So let's grab navbar ULLIA. We want to grab the link because that's where the padding is. If we look over here, it has padding 20 pixels. So I'm going to update that to be only 5 pixels on small screens. All right, now they kind of look bunched together, so what I'll do is add a border as well, a very faint border. So let's do border bottom, and let's do just a shade lighter. We'll do 444. Let's do dotted as a style and 1 pixel. Okay, so we'll save that, and now that looks much better. So we still have our hover effect. Good. So the next thing I want to do, actually, let's get rid of those extra links. That'll make it look better because there won't be as many links. Okay, so now we have a responsive menu. So we have our standard nav bar, and then we have our responsive nav bar. So the next thing I want to do is we'll skip the showcase. When we test with the devices in the dev tools, we may need to update this a little bit. But for now, let's move on to the home info section. And one thing I want to change is the height. Okay, if we go down to our home info ID, it's 400. I want to actually change it to 450 because it was covering the read more even when it was a little bit above 768, like right here on 400. If I change it to 400, you can see that it kind of runs down a little bit. So we want that to be 450, like that. And then once we hit that 768 mark and mobile CSS kicks in, what I want to do is just get rid of that image completely and have this whole dark part with the text go all the way across. So let's add in here home info, and we're going to take the image, so home dash info, and I believe right here it has a class of info image, and I'm actually going to set that to display none. All right, so now that image is gone. Next thing we need to do is the info content, which is this part here. We need to get rid of the float because right now it's float right. So we need to get rid of the float. Actually, I'll just copy this whole thing. And we need to change the float, the width, and the height. Okay, so the float should be none. And actually the height, we'll just leave that, but the width we want to change to 100% because we want it to go all the way across. So let's save that, and there we go. All right, so you can see that these parts are now responsive. Once we hit that part, it goes down like that. Okay, so the next part is the 3 boxes right here. Now these have a class of box, it's the same class that's on these as well, so it's also going to pertain to this. Basically, anywhere on the site where we want to line these boxes up like this, they have that box class right here. So we want to clear those, and then we want to set them to 100%. That's really all we have to do. So let's say boxes and dot box. We want to say float none. And we want to set the width to 100%. Okay, we'll save that. And now you can see they're nicely stacked. So that looks pretty good. Now we're going to move on to the About page. And this is not going to take effect yet because we haven't added the link tag to the About page. So let's go to index and let's copy. Let's just go to this index. You know what, let me close this up for a second. So from index, I'm going to copy this link to the mobile CSS, which has this media attribute, and I'm going to put it in About right under the style CSS and save. I'm also going to do it with contact. So on the contact page, right below style CSS, we'll paste that in as well. That way we have it working on all pages. So let's see, let's bring back mobile CSS and bring it over to the side. And close that up. And we need to clear this float right here. because if we look at the style CSS, we have info right, which is float right. We have info left, which is float left, and they're both 50% wide. So what we need to do is clear, or not clear, but set float to none for both and set the width to 100% for both. So let's go down here and let's say about, and we're going to grab about info dash right, and let's also grab about info dash left. Okay, because we're doing the same thing for both, so we might as well just put them both on the same style. So let's do float none, and let's do width 100% and save. All right, cool. Now for the heading here, I actually want this to be aligned to the center. So if you remember, this has a class of L heading. So I'm just going to grab that class, L-heading, and we're going to text align to the center. And then another thing I want to do is the L heading in the style CSS, I just want to add a line height to, because the words were running into each other. So let's see, where is it? It should be up here at the utility right here. So L heading, I'm going to say line height. Let's change it to 1.2. All right. Now let's see, what else do we want to do here? The info right, which is the image, I kind of want to move that down a little bit. I think it's too close right here. So I'm going to grab this. We'll go right here and we'll just add a margin top to it. So let's do 30 pixels. Okay, so that moved that down a little bit. All right, now the testimonials here, you can see that the boxes are kind of coming out a little bit. So to fix that, we should probably actually put that in the style sheet over here. So let's find testimonials. Okay, so we got height 600 pixels. What if we just set this to height 100%? There we go. So that fixes that. We don't even have to add anything special there. So that looks pretty good to me. Now let's go to the contact and notice that these are already stacked, because remember, these have a class of box, and we've already done the float none, we've already done width 100%. One thing that I would like to do though is have a border, because I think there's just, I don't know, it looks like there's too much space in between here. So let's go down here, we'll say contact, and let's target the contact dash info, and we want to target the box class inside there, not just dot box, because we don't want borders on in the other boxes which are on the home page. We don't need that, because as you can see, they kind of revolve the colors, so we don't need it there. But for the contact boxes, let's do border bottom. Let's do 444 dotted 1 pixel and save. And now you can see we have the border. I just think it gives it a little, just a little texture, I guess. Okay, cool. So what else do we want to do here? I think we're ready to start testing it on the actual devices. So I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to open up our dev tools, and let's click on the device icon here. And for this course, I'm only going to be testing on iPhone X, 6, 7, 8, Galaxy. I don't care about iPhone 5, because the screen size is so small that we'll have to add extra media queries just for that. And not too many people have an iPhone 5 anymore. If you want to add those styles yourself, you can do that, but we're not going to focus on that. So let's see, if we look at this, this looks pretty good. One thing I noticed though is that this is pushed down quite a bit, so we may want to look into that. About page looks good. This is pushed down quite a bit. Contact page looks good. All right, let's look at iPhone 6, 7, 8. So kind of same thing really. Looks good. Let's try the Galaxy. Yeah, pretty much all the same. But if we look at the iPhone 5, you can see that the screen is so small that it kind of messes up a little bit. So you might want to just mess with the heights and stuff like that. But I don't want to get too deep into this. I just want it to look good on modern iPhones and the Galaxy. Pixel also looks good. So let's change this right here, this spacing. I'm going to go back into mobile CSS and let's go above, or actually let's go right below where the nav bar is. And let's say showcase. Actually, showcase. And we want the ID showcase. And I'm going to set the height to 100%. Okay, so we have the height at 100% now. And then I'm going to set the padding top to 70 pixels, and I'm going to add some padding to the bottom. Right now the padding is, what is the padding on showcase? Let's see. Yeah, showcase, oh wait, yeah, padding top, I'm sorry, not showcase, showcase content. The padding top is 170. So I'm going to change it to 70, which will move it up. So let's actually just grab this. And then we can take these out. So we'll do padding top 70. And then to add some space on the bottom, let's do padding bottom 30 pixels. And there we go. That looks much better. And that's the Pixel 2. So if we look at the iPhone, and let's take a look at the iPad. So that's the iPad. Good. And the iPad Pro is just going to look like the desktop because it's so wide. Okay, so now what I want to do is check out the landscape view. So let's hit the landscape. And if you wanted to, you could put a media query for the height, and you could lessen the padding here. But I think it's fine because as we scroll, it looks good. You know, but if you absolutely need to have this above the fold when the person lands on the page in landscape mode, you could do that. But yeah, the rest of it, you can see the floats are intact because the width is 812. Our breakpoint is 768, so these are still going to be floated along with the menu. If we go to the about, you can see we have our floats. Okay, everything looks good. Contact boxes are floated. Good. So I think that we're in good shape here. And as I mentioned, it's more difficult to make your site responsive when you're using floats. Floats are almost like a hack. They're almost like a CSS hack to align your elements. But in the next section, we're going to start to look at Flexbox, which is a much better way to align things. You also have CSS Grid. Some people like to choose one or the other. I think that's silly. I think that there's certain situations for Flex and there's certain situations for the grid system. And I'll kind of go over those differences as we move along. All right, so that's it. I hope you're enjoying the course, and I'll see you in the next video.